Between these two right here, can you tell which one is real sterling silver? Because most people don't typically know. Hi everyone, it's Lacey with Thunderbird Supply. In this week's video, we are kind of doing something a little bit more different. This video is kind of more like an educational video for those people who don't know the difference between nickel and sterling silver. We do get comments about this on our Facebook and Instagram, even TikTok, people asking us like, what is the difference between nickel and silver? So let's go ahead and get started with today's video. Okay, so sterling silver is a precious metal made of 92.5% of pure silver, and the other remaining percent, typically a 7.5%, is just made of other metals. Typically, it is made of copper. You can usually identify sterling silver by a stamp, which is usually 0.925 sterling silver, or you may see SS on your jewelry, or maybe on like a shaded silver. So silver is really bright, shiny, and softer than most other jewelry metals, which makes it a lot easier to bend, shape, and solder. This is a main reason why a lot of people and a lot of jewelers like to work with silver compared to like nickel, copper, or even red brass, where it may be a little bit more harder to work with. One thing about sterling silver is that it can tarnish over time. It'll turn into this gray or black color. It'll kind of look like it's old. A lot of people do like that look. I personally really like that color and that vintage look of it when my jewelry does get a little tarnished. However, with sterling silver, it is a lot easier to polish compared to nickel. Sterling silver, it can go from like a dull black or gray, and once it's polished, once it's properly buffed and stuff, it'll be so bright and so shiny. So that's one of the things I really do love about sterling silver. And with sterling silver, you know, it is a lot more expensive, especially with the silver market. It fluctuates daily. So sterling silver, because it is rare, it is pricey, it is considered a precious metal. Nickel, which is also referred to as nickel silver, alpaca silver, or even German silver. Despite the word silver being in the word, there's absolutely no silver in it whatsoever, so don't be fooled. Instead, nickel is typically an alloy made primarily of copper, zinc, and again, nickel, hence the name. But yes, nickel is a lot harder and more rich than sterling silver, making it a lot harder to bend. So let's take a bracelet for example. If you make a bracelet with sterling silver, you know, you can pinch it or like even open it a little bit to fit around your wrist. However, with nickel, it's going to be a lot more harder to do that. You know, again, it's nickel. It's going to be a little bit more trickier to bend and to maneuver and to shape around your wrist. You will most likely use a little bit more force. Rings, when you are shaping it with nickel, may be a little bit more harder to do as well. But if you are wanting some jewelry where you don't want it to bend, maybe for kids, nickel is a great option since, you know, kids can be a little bit careless, you know, they're a little bit too lively. Nickel won't bend and break as easily as silver. Nickel, on the other hand, is just considered a base metal. Nickel is a lot more affordable. So for the artists who are just starting out, or they want to, you know, try a design that they have never made before, they do typically start and get nickel just to practice their design before they go and buy the silver and they go and make the finished piece with the silver. Fun fact, about 20% of the world is allergic to nickel. If you do have sensitive skin, or you break out in hives easily, or if you have a lot of allergies, nickel is not the great choice for you. Both nickel and silver, they do have like a silver color appearance. One thing to note is that both are non-magnetic. Another fun fact is that most silversmiths and metalsmiths, they can actually hear the sounds of the difference between nickel and sterling silver. If they tap it against the surface, they can kind of hear like the different tunes of it. A fun fact is that people can smell the difference between nickel and silver, although it's not really like straight up holding it and sniffing it. With wearing nickel, with it being rubbing against your skin, you know, if you're outside or if you're doing your daily stuff, you know, you may kind of sweat a little bit. So with your skin, your sweat, and the nickel all touching your skin, it creates a metallic smell. For skin reactions, one noticeable difference between the two is that nickel contains, you know, nickel and copper in the metal, okay? Some people may notice a green, black, or even a gray color appearing on their skin after wearing it. I'm sure you guys may have seen that. Sterling silver, on the other hand, it doesn't have as many issues. It doesn't leave a residue on your finger. It doesn't leave like a black or gray color. However, you know, if perhaps you oxidize your piece, or maybe you buffed it and you didn't wipe off all of the compound or all of those chemicals, or maybe you're using like a specific kind of lotion, silver can leave like a little color on you. I do have a sterling silver ring where it kind of did leave like a little bit of color on my finger, just because it did have a little bit of the oxidation still on it. But after I wiped it and I kind of cleaned it up a little bit, I was all good. No colors were left on me again. So the next time when you see something that's labeled German silver, nickel silver, please keep in mind it is not sterling silver. And if you ever are wondering if one of your pieces is genuine sterling silver, here at Thunderbird Supply, we do sell silver testing kits. We have these little acids that you can put on like the back of your piece before like filling it all over, and it'll have like a reaction or no reaction to tell you if it's silver or not, or if you want to test to see if something is nickel. We do also sell testing kits for that as well. If you guys have any other questions about jewelry or even metals, go ahead and comment them down below and I can do a future video about that. But that is all for this week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.